Anastasia, Chapter 28, Part 3. Vladimir starts by saying, "Why did you take such a risk if you knew it was so dangerous?" Quote, "I had no choice. After all, you wanted me to do something. I was afraid that if I did not fulfill your request, you would lose all respect for me. You would think that all I can do is talk, that I am all words, and that I could not do anything in real life." Her eyes looked at me inquiringly and pleadingly. Her soft voice trembled a little as she spoke. Quote, "But I cannot explain to you how to do it, how this natural system works. I feel it, but I cannot explain it to you in a way you could understand, and your scholars probably will not be able to explain it either." She bowed her head, fell silent for a while as though mustering her strength. Then she looked at me once more with pleading eyes and said, quote, "Now you're going to be even more persuaded that I am abnormal or a witch." All at once, I felt a tremendous urge to do something good for her. But what? I wanted to tell her that I did consider her a normal human being, a beautiful and intelligent woman, but in all honesty, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel about her the way I usually felt about women, and she, with that intuition of hers, would not believe me. And then I suddenly recalled her story about how her great-grandfather customarily greeted her as a child, about how this old gray-haired fellow would stand on one knee before the little Anastasia and kiss her hand. I got down on one knee before Anastasia, grasped hold of her still pale and slightly cold hand, kissed it, and said, quote, "If you are indeed abnormal, then you are the best, the kindest, the cleverest, and most beautiful of all abnormal people ever." At long last, a smile once more alighted upon Anastasia's lips, and her eyes looked at me in gratitude. A rosy blush was coming back to her cheeks. Quote, "Anastasia, that was quite a depressing scene. Did you choose it deliberately?" Quote, "I was looking for something good, just as an example, but I could not find anything. They are all held in the grip of their worries and cares. They are constantly facing their problems all alone. They have practically no spiritual communication." Quote, "So what can be done? What can you suggest apart from pitying them? And I should tell you, these are strong people, these entrepreneurs." Quote, "Very strong," she agreed, "and most interesting. It is as though they are living two lives in one. One life is known only to them, not even their family are aware of it, while the other is the outward life, which people see around them. They can only be helped through increasing their sincere spiritual communication with each other. They need to strive with complete sincerity for purity of thought. Anastasia, in all probability, I shall try to do what you have asked. I shall try to both write a book and establish an organization of entrepreneurs with pure thoughts, but only in a way that I can understand. Quote, "It will be difficult for you. I shall not be able to offer you sufficient help. I have little strength left. It will take a long time for my strength to recover. For a time, I shall not be able to see at a distance with my ray. I am even having difficulty seeing you right now with my ordinary eyesight." Quote, "Don't tell me you're going blind, Anastasia." Quote, "I think it will all get better, only it is a pity that for some time I shall not be able to help you." Quote, "You don't need to help me, Anastasia. Just try to keep yourself for your son and help other people." I needed to leave to catch up with my ship. After waiting until she had started to regain her almost normal appearance, I got into the motorboat, Anastasia took hold of the bow with her hand and pushed the boat away from the shore. The boat was swept up and began floating downstream with the current. Anastasia stood in the water almost up to her knees. The hem of her long skirt got wet and flapped about in the waves. I gave the starting cord a tug. The motor roared into life, breaking the silence I had grown accustomed to over the past 3 days. The boat gave a jerk forward, picked up more and more speed, and soon began to distance itself from the diminutive figure of the taiga recluse, standing all alone in the shallow water near the riverbank. All at once, Anastasia rushed out of the water and started running along the bank of the boat, after the boat. Her long hair, trailing behind her from the headwind, looked like a comet's tail. She tried to run very fast, probably using up all her remaining strength in an effort to do the impossible, to catch up with a speeding motorboat. But even she wasn't up to that. The distance between us gradually increased. I started feeling sorry for her fruitless efforts. Wanting to shorten the difficult moments of parting, I pushed down on the gas lever with all my might. Then the thought flashed through my head that Anastasia might think that I had taken fright once more and was running away. The motor, now roaring in bursts, lifted the boat's bow out of the water, making it speed forward faster and faster and increasing the distance between us even more. As for her, oh Lord, what was she doing? Anastasia ripped off her wet skirt that was slowing her down and cast aside her torn clothes. She increased her tempo, and the incredible happened. The distance between her and the boat gradually began to decrease. On the path ahead of her loomed a steep slope leading to an almost vertical drop-off. Continuing to press the gas lever to the limit, I thought that the incline would stop her in her tracks and bring this difficult episode to a quick end. But Anastasia continued her headlong rush, occasionally stretching out her arms in front of her as though using them to sense the space ahead. Could it be that her eyesight had become so poor that she couldn't see the slope? Without slowing down in the least, Anastasia ran straight up the slope. Reaching the top, she fell on her knees, threw up her arms toward the sky, turned slightly in my direction, and began shouting something. I could hear her voice over the wild roar of the motor and the noise of the waves. I heard her as though in a whisper. There are shallows ahead, shallows, sunken logs. I quickly jerked my head forward, not fully able to grasp what was happening, and gave such a hard pull on the rudder that the lower side of the sharply tilted boat almost submerged to the point of taking on water. A huge sunken log, one end grounded in a sandbar, the other barely visible on the surface, lightly scraped against the side of the speeding boat. If it had been a direct hit, it would have easily torn a gaping hole in the thin aluminum bottom. Once out in mid-channel, I turned to glance at the cliff and whispered in the direction of the lonely figure standing on her knees, which was slowly being transformed into a vanishing dot. Thank you, Anastasia.